Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us. My name is Scott Gregory, and our webinar today is called Improve Your Customer Experience with Point of Entry Marketing. And the presentation itself should take about 30 minutes or so, and when we're done, we'll be happy to take any questions you may have. And if you do have questions, just send them to us during the webinar using the webinar software, and our speaker will be glad to answer any of them after the presentation. And speaking of our speaker, Jerry Brown is the founder and CEO of Madison Avenue Marketing Group. That's a family of agencies that specializes in point-of-entry marketing. And they help companies create positive experiences with everyone who enters their organization, whether it's on the phone or through a website or maybe by walking through the front door. And the MadAv Group team develops and manages custom marketing programs that help companies build customer share, increase customer retention, and reinforce brand identity. So now I am pleased to introduce Jerry Brown. Jerry?
Thank you, Scott, and thank you all for taking time out of your busy day to spend some time with us during this webinar. For the next 30 minutes or so, we are going to be discussing inbound, or also known as point of entry marketing. We're going to talk about what it is, why it's relevant and very important, how others are using it, and how they're specifically benefiting. And first, I'd like to start with the concept. And that concept being perception versus reality. Too often as marketers, we design marketing programs and base marketing strategies on how we feel our company operates and what we feel our company is, essentially our perception of our company and our products and our services. But in reality, we should be doing it from the customer's perspective. People see your company through different lenses, and it's important that when you're putting together any marketing, it has to be done from the customer's perception. So in looking, just to give you some ideas, when I was little, I saw The Wizard of Oz, and I am sure most of you probably saw The Wizard of Oz, and this particular scene scared me to death. In fact, I saw most of it from my mom's lap. But this is what all the rest of the viewers, and the citizens of Oz, this is how they perceive the great and mighty all-powerful Oz. But in reality, this was The Wizard of Oz. Now, this isn't such a bad thing for businesses. If you don't have a good business and people perceive it to be way better than it is, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But the opposite can be a killer. So what if this is your reality? What if you're a great company, you've got great products, you've got great services, but your prospects and customers perceive this? Well, that can be a problem. So how are these perceptions formed? Well, they're formed through customer experience. And customer experience isn't just when a customer uses your products or services. It's formed every single touch point they have with your company. So if they're calling you on the telephone to talk about setting an appointment or about an invoice or a bill, or whether they're looking you up on your website to research your products, or whether they're walking through your front doors to actually do business with you, every single one of those touch points is where they form their perception of your company. And why that's important to really focus on customer experience is because the majority of people who stop doing business with your company aren't doing so because of a better price or a better product. They're doing it because of a bad experience. And typically it's a bad experience with somebody being apathetic. And research shows that it's about 9 out of 10 people stop doing business because of a bad customer experience as opposed to bad product. And most consumers now think that customer experience is more important than price. In fact, I'm going to suggest that in 5 to 10 years, the customer experience will overtake price and product as the key differentiator between brands. Let me repeat that because I think that's important. In a very short amount of time, customer experience will be more important than price and product. So if that's the case, we have to make sure that we do everything we can to endeavor to make the best possible impression on and the best possible experience for those who are taking the time to seek us out. So where are these impressions made? Well, there are 3 points of entry in your business. I can call you on the telephone, I can look you up on your website, or I can walk through your front door. Let's take each one of these one at a time. Let's first talk about the caller experience. When somebody calls you on the phone, they just hear your voice. All they have is their ears to be able to make a perception. But believe me, they're forming a visual image of whoever they're talking to on the phone. So think about your caller experience for a while. When somebody calls your company, do they visualize, let me go to the right, do they visualize this, or do they visualize talking to this lady? We live in a very technological society where people are more and more using email and text and all other forms of nonverbal communication to talk. But in reality, most consumers still prefer to talk to somebody over the telephone rather than anything else. And yet, the majority of us aren't satisfied with the caller experience at most organizations. And as I mentioned earlier, it's not because of product and service, it's most always because of apathy. Apathy of the employees that they're engaging with, and also apathy of the business owners who don't take the time to put in the proper procedures and processes and systems, who don't take the time to hire the right people and to train them so that they can make the customer experience as good as it can be for their customers and prospects. What about online? When somebody looks you up on the internet and they go to your website, what experience, what perception do they form? Do they see a website that's cluttered and confusing, or do they see one that's clear and simple? It's really important because most of us now use the internet to research products and services online. We're not using Yellow Pages, we're not using newspaper, we're not talking to salespeople. We are looking this stuff up ourselves online. And with that said, half of us don't even build our websites for basic usability principles. And what I mean by that is when somebody comes to your site, it's not familiar. They don't know where to go for navigation. Maybe it's not consistent from page to page. It's not intuitive. It's not easy to use. It doesn't guide visitors through their buying cycle. Everybody always goes through buying stages from the time they have interest in a product or service until the time they buy it. And if a website is set up to be able to walk them through that process easily and efficiently, it's great for the customer experience. It's also great for the company. Also, a lot of websites aren't credible. They don't build trust. They have misspellings of words. They have a very limited contact page. They don't have an About Us page. Maybe the information that they have is just not relevant anymore. It's old. It's dated. Maybe it's hard to access the website. It doesn't load very quickly. There are broken links. It's not responsive. And speaking of not being responsive, it's surprising to me, being in marketing, how many websites still aren't responsive. And that's really important to think about when you realize this quote from Forbes. There are more people in the world today that have mobile telephones than have access to working toilets. When I first read this quote, I didn't know how to really research to see if it's true or not, but the point is well made. People today are using their mobile phones more and more and more, and they need to have a good experience when they look you up. So what about on-site? When somebody comes to your lobby, to your store, to your facilities, is it something that they experience? Is it cold? Is it sterile? Do they feel uncomfortable? Or is it more warm and welcoming? We really have the potential to make much longer lasting impressions on site in our lobbies, in our places of business, than we do over the telephone or online, because we have the opportunity to engage more of our senses. And experiences are much more intensely memorable when I can engage more senses. For instance, if you read something, you remember it for so long. If you read something and somebody's telling you about it, you remember it for longer. But what if you're able to read it, hear it, smell it, see it? It makes it much more long-lasting. And that's probably why most purchases are made on impulse at the point of purchase, because more senses are engaged. It's more emotional, it's more engaging, and they spend more money. So how do we make a customer experience more positive and more rewarding? Well, I guess in one word I would say sophistication. And the reason why is because the more sophisticated the company is, the more comfortable we feel that they're going to perform for us. In fact, words that I associate with sophistication, whether it's a sophisticated person, a sophisticated organization, a sophisticated company, educated, worldly, experienced, knowing, practiced, seasoned, those are all strong, positive words that are all synonyms of sophistication. And it allows us to feel much more comfortable that this engagement is going to be a positive one. So, to recap what we've said so far, one, we have to understand that everything we do has to be from the client or the customer or the prospect's perception of our business and not our own. Even if ours is reality, doesn't matter, customer perception is reality. And those perceptions are made and based on the customer experiences they have with your company at the 3 points of entry into your company, whether it be the telephone, your website, or your front door. And the more sophisticated those experiences are, the more engaged your customers will be, the more memorable the experience will be, the more positive it will be, and the better for both your customers and your company. So let's talk a little bit more about the benefits of point of entry marketing. Now, I don't want to in any way make an inference that point of entry marketing is more important than outbound traditional marketing, because I'm not. You still need traditional marketing to get prospects to call, click, or visit. You still need to use TV, radio, newspaper, magazines, outdoor, billboards, whatever the case may be, to grab people's attention that would never have known to reach you. But once they do, you need to transition them into your company with a very strong customer experience, a very strong point of entry marketing program, because you spend a lot of time and money and energy on traditional media or traditional marketing trying to get people to call, click, or visit, and you can immediately ruin all that by one bad customer experience. So what are some specific benefits of point of entry marketing? Well, it always reaches your ideal audience. Unlike using TV or radio or anything else, if I'm a cigar dealer, I would imagine that a lot of my message is going to be seen by kids or people that don't smoke cigars. But every single person that contacts my company is my ideal audience. And I also reach them at just the right time. My messages aren't interrupting their dinner. It's not interrupting a conversation they're having with a friend as they're driving home. It's not interrupting a song that they were singing or a business meeting. It's right when they've decided to approach me, my company, they have their hand on their wallet, and they are a captive audience, and they're ready to engage. Point of entry marketing is the only type of marketing that can make this claim. Every single person who contacts you, every single one, point of entry marketing will make positive impressions on. And here's probably my favorite. Traditional marketing can be very, very expensive. Point of entry marketing is way less expensive, and the reason is because the media is free. You own it. Now, you always have to pay to produce content no matter what media you use. If you then want to play it on the radio or the TV or run an ad, you have to pay big chunks of money. And it can range anywhere from $50 every time you do it to hundreds of thousands of dollars every time you use it. But in this particular instance with point of entry marketing, if you telecast something, it's free. You own that. If you storecast something, it's free. You own that. And the same thing with webcasting. You own your website. So now let's take a look at a real-life case study of how a company is implementing point of entry marketing. And I'm going to choose Mountain View Tire and Auto Service. And the reason I'm choosing Mountain View is because of a few things. Number one, they do a great job with their point of entry marketing. And they're also in an industry that's struggling a bit. The tire and auto service industry is struggling a little bit because manufacturers have now started selling direct, and they've got increased regulation. And in fact, a lot of folks in this particular industry are breaking even. Their revenue may be reduced a bit or flat. However, Mountain View is a company that has 30-plus locations in Southern California, and last year their revenue was up 11%. So what are some of the ways they're doing it? Well, let's first talk about their particular caller experience. What they started with years ago is telephone skills training. And they used it to train the people who talk on the phones to their customers and prospects. And they taught them the things that they need to do and what they shouldn't be doing. Typically asking for somebody's name, letting them know your name, engaging them in the conversation, asking appropriate questions, making appropriate declarations and proof statements and those sorts of things. But what happens when they do this is it really improves the engagement and the conversation with their callers. They get a lot more authentic dialogue, the conversations last longer, they're able to provide a much higher level of service to their callers. And that also, on the flip side, gives them double-digit growth in appointments set. So not only is it providing a better experience for the caller, it's paying off. The one problem that they have is that this needs to be done on a regular basis. And they started off doing it once, immediately had a spike in appointments, and then it slowly ebbed away. And the reason being is they have new employees who haven't gone through the training, and the ones that went through the training may not have formed those habits yet. So they've realized that they have to do this on an ongoing basis, and now they're turning it into a quarterly program that is a must for all their employees. They also, years ago, used on-hold marketing. They got it free from Goodyear. Not a bad deal. Free on-hold marketing for all of their locations. But the problem was they realized they had thousands of hours of people waiting on hold every year, and they were branding Goodyear and Goodyear tires, and they wanted to brand Mountain View. And so what they did is they used very original, very unique, exclusive information just for them to create an experience that people started to like Mountain View Tire and started to build that brand. They also realized that we don't just sell tires, and we don't just sell Goodyear tires. So they wanted to talk about all the other services they provided, all the auto care services. And using top-of-mind awareness while people were waiting on hold, they really increased that to the point now where auto service brings in more money than tires. And before they started this program, that wasn't the case. A few other things. Sonic branding, also known as audio branding or acoustic branding, is a way to use music and sounds to brand yourself so that when people hear those sounds, they think of you. I'll give you an example of audio logos. NBC is one everybody knows. They have that three-tone da-da-da, and they use it with chords, they use it with everything, and now whenever you hear that, you immediately think of NBC. Or you can use whole songs and background music like United Airlines does. They use Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. Da, 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 da. And they use it in all of their marketing in all kinds of different forms, and you immediately get a good feel. It immediately makes you think of American Airlines as opposed to any of their competitors. And it just isn't used with bigger companies. Anytime somebody is dealing with a company, no matter how big or small, if we can use sonic branding to make them have a more memorable experience, we should do that. What about news and entertainment? There are a lot of companies that have a lot of frequent callers, and so they want to make sure that they change their information on a regular basis, and that can get expensive and very timely if you're writing and producing messages for every single day. But you can have news broadcasts or news items that are presented every single day for those callers that are calling in frequently. And there are also, you have to realize that you don't want to just talk about your company and how good it is and all the products and services you sell. You want to come from the caller's perspective. How do you entertain them and make them feel more comfortable while they're waiting on the phone? Well, in addition to news and other things, you can have very specific type of messaging. You may have quizzes that you come back 30 seconds later with an answer. You may have trivia. You may be talking about community events. You may talk about charities that you support. You may use humor. People love to laugh, and they're not used to hearing something humorous when they call somebody on the phone. One thing Mountain View Tire does not have, they don't have a contact center or a call center, but I wanted to put this up here specifically because it's extremely important to think about the caller experience when you're talking about a contact center. You may not be aware, but the #1 pet peeve of callers is automated attendance. And so there's a lot that you can do to make that experience a much more memorable one. What about the online experience that Mountain View Tire put together? Well, the first thing they looked at was their website. What was happening, they were getting a lot of visitors, but they weren't getting appointments. They weren't getting conversions. And so when they looked at their website, they realized it was really hard to navigate. It wasn't based on the buying journey of their visitors. So they decided to really think about the stages that their visitors are going through, the stages of interest and attention and engagement and discovery and research to evaluation and conviction and then getting it done. And they made it very easy for them to navigate through their website. What happened by doing that? 30 days after implementing their website, they tripled their online appointments. I don't know if that's a regular result that people would get, because that's quite a bit, but that's a very good result. That was, I think they did that 3 or 4 years ago, and just recently they built a responsive website. And when they did that, their online appointments increased by 250%, which tells me that more people are viewing their website through their telephone than they are through their computer. They also employed a very intense content marketing program. Now, while this is a little bit harder to immediately see statistics because it takes longer to get this done, what they were trying to do was they wanted to become an expert. They wanted to build trust. They didn't want to just be perceived as somebody who's selling tires and selling auto service. They wanted to make you more comfortable. They wanted to make your family safer by giving you information on car care and tire tips and all sorts of things. And so they've done a very good job with that. And now content marketing is extremely important then if you're a professional, especially if you're a lawyer in the financial field or healthcare, because there people aren't buying primarily on cost, they're buying on the service, and more importantly, they're buying on their perception of how good that service is. And that perception is made through point of entry marketing at the 3 points of entry into your business. Obviously, it's important also for them to get people to their site. So this is what they did. They put in a comprehensive search engine optimization program, including local search, so that anytime somebody plugged in auto service, a map with all of their locations in that area came up. That's called local search. If you're not doing that, make sure you get that done. They have a very active social media marketing program and online PR. They also use search engine marketing, pay-per-click for immediate results. When they want to immediately increase traffic, they use pay-per-click or remarketing to get that done. They also have a sophisticated email marketing program that targets their existing users and lets them know when it's time for an oil change or time for something else. One thing they don't have and didn't do that I still put on here was marketing automation, and I just wanted to make a note of that because that's something that when somebody is coming to your website, being able to track all that, see where they are, see how long they've spent there, see how many times they've come back, allows you to, through automation, be able to automatically send them messages or point them to other areas, or even maybe even call them on the telephone. It can be quite sophisticated and very successful. What about their on-premise experience? What did Mountain View Tire do to enhance this for the people who actually came to their stores? Well, the first thing I want to talk about is outdoor. They had some underperforming stores, and at first they thought it was location, bad location. And after analyzing that, they realized, no, it's good locations. Why are these stores underperforming? It must be the managers at the stores. So they actually took and moved managers around to these other stores, and guess what? They increased a little bit, but not too much, and they were still under the benchmark of all the other stores. So what they did is they said, let's do an audit. Let's go to these stores and see what they're not doing that others are. And the thing that they noticed after driving to 16 different stores is that from the outside, they weren't flying their flag. They weren't branded as Mountain View Tire. In fact, there were big Goodyear signs and very small Mountain View Tire signs. So if they're doing all of this marketing and all this customer experience based on Mountain View, then they need to brand the outside of their stores as Mountain View. So what they did is they decided to put together a budget and a program where they were going to go one store at a time, and the ones that needed to be branded from the outside, they were going to brand them 1 month at a time. And what they found is as soon as they brought them up to standards with the other stores, and as soon as people driving by could visually see that this was Mountain View Tire, the amount of traffic immediately increased. They also use point-of-purchase display marketing. So pretty simple. When somebody's in their stores, they have graphics that describe things and grab your attention. So if you want to increase high-margin products like nitrogen in tires instead of regular air, or they wanted to sell more national warranty programs so that if somebody blew a tire wherever they were, they could get it fixed. They didn't have to be at a Mountain View Tire location to get that fixed. And what that did is it really increased impulse buys from their visitors. It also had a nice secondary application, which was it really increased engagement between the employee, the counterman, and their customer. It really improved dialogue. And so those conversations led to more engagement and more services sold and more revenue. They also do in-store video marketing. With video, movement captures attention, and engaging content can build brand and drive action. So they use it to do multiple things. They use it to entertain and educate and keep people informed. They also do it to remind or introduce new products or services, or let people know of safety, things you should do for the safety of your car. Arbitron's a big ratings company, and a big study they did found that 29% of the consumers who had seen an in-store video said they bought a product they weren't planning on buying after seeing the product featured on the video. So in-store video marketing can be very effective if you have people waiting in line or waiting in a waiting room for a good amount of time. What are some of the other things that they could have done but they have not implemented? One, branded music. Just like we were talking about the caller experience, using music is a great way to create a mood. If you want people to feel more comfortable in your waiting room, maybe you play a music that's more soothing, more eclectic, doesn't have a beat. If you have in nursing homes, you'll find that people will use music from the 40s to bring back memories and create great feelings about an era gone by. It's also great for setting a pace. If you have a situation where you want to try to move people quickly through a process, you'd want to use music that's a little bit more up-tempo. You can also use in-store audio marketing. And where this comes handy, it's not used so much for branding. It's not used as much for top-of-mind awareness. It's more a direct call to action. So if I'm in a grocery store, for example, and that grocery store wants you to buy products from the deli, which is in the back of the store, a great way to do it is through audio marketing. I'll give you a couple examples of grocery stores using this. Mark's is a grocery store chain, and they're in Ohio. They have about 60 locations in Ohio and 6 to 10 on the East Coast. And they had a problem with their fresh fruit and vegetables not being sold, and they would have a lot of waste. So they decided to start using in-store audio marketing to promote that. And what they did, I'll give you one example. A lot of green peppers, tons of green peppers. Instead of saying, hey, we got a sale on green peppers, come on back and get them, what they did is they thought more about their shoppers' experience, and they decided to play messages that talked about how delicious these peppers were in particular meals, and giving recipes on how to use those peppers. The results, their shoppers listened, and they sold out of peppers at all of their stores in just 2 days. Great Scott is another grocery store chain that uses it, and they every time that they promote a particular product in store, it goes up quite a bit in percentage. They had one time where they had a week where Bolthouse drinks was increased. The sales of Bolthouse drinks increased 400% just because of running messages. Also, aroma marketing is another example of how you can improve the customer experience in your lobbies or your stores. What aroma marketing is dispersing or diffusing scent into your lobbies. And let me ask you this. Have you ever been doing something and you smelled a smell that you haven't smelled in years, and it immediately took you back to a memory many, many years ago? That's aroma marketing. Aroma is the only sense that is, how do I want to say this? The only sense that goes to the emotive side of the brain before it goes to the logical side of the brain. So what happens, it's very good for anchoring and triggering. If you have an experience that is cemented with a smell, that means that's a much stronger experience for me now. My memory's going to remember that. My memory's going to remember that. And what will happen is when I smell that later on, it immediately triggers back to the experience I had earlier. You can use this for branding. Lincoln Motors does this. They put it in their new stores and showrooms, so that when people come in, their whole entire brand is now including aroma. So not only can I touch and feel the cars and see beautiful visuals and have great branded music, I now have a Lincoln smell. And they liked it so much that they're now putting it in their new Lincolns. You can also use aroma to influence emotion. There are lots of studies that show MRI centers and doctors' offices where people are waiting and they're stressed because they're uncomfortable about what's going to happen when they get into their appointment. Dentists, the same thing. And in a lot of those cases, for instance, MRI, you may be waiting for an MRI and you're so stressed about going that you leave early. So 50% of the people may end up not keeping their appointments. So what do? You diffuse a scent that really calms and soothes, maybe a vanilla, and it actually calms them down, reduces their stress so that they stay in your facility longer. You can also use aroma to drive action. If somebody wanted to sell chocolate chip cookies, they smell great when you're baking them, and people want to buy them, but as soon as they cool or you wrap them in cellophane, you don't smell them anymore. And so if you pump in the smell of chocolate chip cookies, you will sell a lot more chocolate chip cookies. So that's a few of the ways that, in fact, that's all of the ways that Mountain View has been improving their customer experience at their 3 points of entry. And if you don't take away anything else from this executive briefing, I want you to please remember these three important, very important points. Number one, reality isn't reality. Your reality isn't reality. Customer perception is reality. And everything you do should be from the customer's perspective. Number two, The customer experience is becoming more important than product and price. So the amount of time you put in to perfecting your products and creating a very competitive price, you need to be putting even more time in to the customer experience. And number 3, implement strategic, sophisticated, and sustained marketing programs at all 3 points of entry into your business. So in closing, I'd like to leave you with this last thought. And with that, I hope some of these ideas will spur you to really evaluate the customer experience at your 3 points of entry. And if you ever feel like having a conversation, please don't hesitate to contact me. I love this stuff. And I want to thank you for your time and good marketing. Scott, thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. We do have a few questions if you have time.
Sure.
Okay. We have a question from Pam here, and apparently the aroma marketing has struck her fancy a little bit. She asks, how would an aroma be distributed, and where would you use an aroma?
All right. There's 2 ways to diffuse aroma. If you want to do it in a big area like a hospital waiting room or a showroom or a customer service area, the best way to do that would be to diffuse it through your HVAC so that it comes out even, it comes out regular, it's never too strong or too soft, and there's nobody that hears it or sees it being diffused. Another way, if you have a very small area, you would use an actual diffuser for that area that takes an oil and then diffuses it into the air, and a fan would blow it. So that would be the 2 ways of diffusing.
And her second part of that question was, where would you use it? So you had mentioned the Mountain View Tire, I believe, so maybe it's a showroom or
there's a lot of things. If you want to, I'll give you an example. Virginia Auto and Tire realized that the majority of their customers were women. But when you walked in any of their locations, it smelled like a tire store, and it looked like a tire store. And so what they did is they changed their brand, the brand look and feel. They changed the color to a green. They changed their lobbies to be much more comfortable and clean and clear. And we created a smell for them that smelled minty, greeny, fresh. And what happened is they received all kinds of reviews, positive reviews about never been into an auto store that smells so nice before. So that's one way of using it. So you can use it to brand. You can use it again to calm people down. You can use it to speed people up. You would use citrusy types of smells if you wanted to speed people up, and vanillas and other things to slow them down.
Okay. Mark says, thanks for the good info. We work with a few companies for our marketing. What's the advantage of just using one agency for this type of marketing? Okay, so yeah, they're using a couple of different people now for whatever they may be doing, broadcast or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So why just one agency for point of entry?
Okay. I'm a big fan of consistency. I'm a big fan of ease. And when you have, let's say you have 3 different companies to manage the 3 different points of entry in the programs that they're doing for you. You have to work with 3 different sets of companies. So one thing, your message may get lost. You may have to repeat your message over and over and over, as opposed to having one account team that understands you. You go to them once. The second thing is you have the potential to lose consistency in message. So however one company is doing it for your website may not coincide with the philosophies and the tactics that they're using for your lobbies or for your telephone. And so an outside caller or visitor has a different customer experience. It feels like a different company depending on which point of entry they come into. So those would be probably the simplest reasons for using one company, not to mention price. Usually when you go to companies and they're doing more business with you, they give you better discounts.
Okay, we have a question from Dan T, and he says, hello Jerry, where did you receive the info about the #1 phone pet peeve is an automated attendant? You mentioned that auto attendant is a major pet peeve.
That came from the phone doctor. Years ago, it used to be being put on hold was the #1 pet peeve, and automated attendants were the second. But now what happens is with people spending a little bit more time making their on-hold experience a more enjoyable one, that's moved to the second pet peeve. And now the first one is not being able to get a hold of somebody, not being able to talk to a real person, making it so hard to use an automated attendant or a call center to be able to accomplish what I want to accomplish. So that was the phone doctor.
Okay, and just a reminder, if you do have a question, go ahead and use the software, the webinar software, to send that to us. We've got one more that I can see here. This is from James T. This is a lot to take in, so do you have a recommendation on how to get started or what to attack first, what area to attack first?
Yes. I guess the first thing I would do is whoever you use for your point of entry marketing, sit down and just have conversations. So try to determine where the majority of your business is coming from, where you may have the biggest concerns. There's also ways of doing audits. Doing an audit where you're calling your company on the phone and recording it and finding out how that experience is. Doing an audit where you have somebody go to your website with a specific goal in mind and see how easy it is to find where they need to go. Also doing mystery shopping where they actually come into your locations and see what the problem is. So I'm a big fan of first identifying where your problems are, having a bigger conversation, going through discovery, setting priorities as to what's hurting the most, setting priorities as to what budget fits the best and what takes the least amount of time or the most amount of time, those sorts of things. Just have open dialogue with an expert.
Alrighty, it looks like that's all of our questions. There we go. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. In about an hour, you're going to get a survey via email about this webinar, and we would really appreciate it if you would take just a moment to complete that for us. It's going to help us improve future webinars, so please help us out with that. And if you'd like more details, of course, feel free to call Jerry or any other member of the MADAF Group team. The local number is 419-473-9000, and you can reach Jerry by email anytime at jerry.brown@madavgroup.com. And of course, you can always visit our main website, madavgroup.com. We certainly appreciate you being with us today. Hope it was valuable for you, and give us a call if we can help with anything. And thanks again for joining us. Have a great day.